Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at Uranium Energy. It is time for another update, and on this chart we have been tracking the idea of a series of 1-2 setups that would have formed within this area, where afterwards we would have been normally expecting to build a third wave to the upside. Now, since within this supposed wave 3 we have failed to create a clearly impulsive pattern, we have a few options. So we could be looking at this as a leading diagonal to form another wave 1 to the upside in a 5-wave structure. We would have an additional 1-2 setup to look for the follow-up wave to be the actual wave 3. Valid interpretation, possible scenario, but this does come with some risks, because while it is a valid interpretation, now with this additional extension to higher prices, I could be looking for an extension of the wave 1. And in this case, we would need to be prepared for a more substantial correction in a wave 2. Now, would I be able to predict for you which of these structures will play out in the end? Not really. Yeah, we will need to be prepared for both interpretations. We will need to have strong risk management on this chart and position accordingly, because once we form the top within this current movement to the upside, we would still be looking for a substantial correction in either case. Whether that is an internal wave 2, we could be looking for a retracement into something like the 78.6% retracement. In that case, it might overlap with the first level of support for the idea of a larger wave 1 up and a wave 2 correction. Now, it is technically possible for this structure to still succeed in forming a third wave in a more direct fashion, although, as we have mentioned many times already, it is within a quite unrealistic expectations scenario. It would require this to be an entire series of 1-2 setups all throughout this push to the upside. Even here, another 1-2 and another 1-2 still to form, and it's just very unlikely to actually work out. Most of the time when such patterns occur, it is indeed just a diagonal structure that leads to a more substantial correction that actually doesn't allow us to follow through. Even more so within such small time frames. Now, nonetheless, we have been tracking this idea of a 5-wave move to form ever since we started covering this chart. We were somewhere around this structure when we were looking for an internal 1-2 setup. We were actually even still tracking an impulse, and we were looking for the third wave to unfold. Now, even though it ended up forming a diagonal structure, we had probably 10 or 11 successful trade setups before we even completed this wave 3, which was followed by this highly regarded area of support for a wave 4 correction. We accurately estimated when we should be able to have a full pattern within this structure, and we were looking for the 5th wave to take us to higher prices within an A, B, C pattern, since once again this is a diagonal structure. Now, within this pattern to the upside, we would still expect to extend a little bit higher. We would still be looking for another leg up before we would assume a more substantial top to be in place based on the count being full, although I do want to mention sometimes within a 5th wave we do actually miss that last leg to the upside. Now, once we would complete this pattern, which I am honestly still looking for continuation to higher prices right now, but once we would complete it, we would still be able to look for even higher prices. Extensions are always possible, and once we would have an A, B, C pattern complete within this area, we could be looking for a larger wave A, another wave B, and a wave C to the upside. It will be possible, but it will be within an even higher risk structure, and I personally wouldn't look afterwards for an area of support for continuation until we get a smaller time frame indication that this structure will have a good chance of extending to higher prices. What would that look like? Well, it would be a tiny initial 5-wave move to the upside that would allow me to consider a potential 1-2 setup. Without that, once we have this pattern complete, I will be prepared for a more substantial top to be in place, and I will be extremely cautious of any long positions. Now, As I was mentioning, within this structure, within this chart, we are still looking for continuation to higher prices momentarily, and we are tracking within this wave C the idea of a 1, 2, third, fourth, and a fifth. I provided you this area of support between the $17.8 all the way down to the $14.4 ever since we actually formed a top within this wave 3. We were looking for a 3-wave correction into the area of support in a similar proportion with what we have formed in this wave 2 correction. Keep in mind, within this wave C, we are tracking an ending diagonal. We had an interpretation for an impulse that would have been possible, but we have failed to hold internal levels of support for continuation to even higher prices, which signaled strongly that this pattern is very unlikely to succeed as an impulse. And after that, we actually managed to extend a bit higher, but still only part of the correction, and fell deep into our area of support for the wave 4 in the green interpretation. Now, at this point, I would consider this structure, this correction, possibly complete, and we have been tracking internally a couple of ideas. So here we had two scenarios. In yellow, we were wary of a potential 5-wave move building to the downside. We had here a 1, 2, third, fourth, and a fifth. In this wave 3, we were tracking an A, B, C movement to the downside. We were tracking this structure both within the wave 3 in yellow, as it can only really form a diagonal structure here in a 5-wave move, or within a WXY pattern that could technically form a bottom within this wave 4 in green. In the assumption that a more significant bottom would have been in place already for the wave 3 in yellow, we had the area of resistance that extended all the way up to the $18.8 level. A break above that would have been a signal that a more substantial bottom would already be in place, and that we could consider this wave 4 to be complete and look for the 5th wave to the upside to new all-time highs. Now, internally within this wave C, we were actually preferring another low. We had an area of resistance for an impulse to form within this area in a 1, 2, third, fourth, and a fifth. We have followed through in this expectation very nicely. We didn't break the area of resistance. The 50% retracement is still above, and we have extended in another 5-wave move to the downside. We are now at a point where we have a full pattern within this wave C. We have a full pattern within this A, B, C, and even within this wave 3 in yellow. We can remove this orange area of resistance. And I even remember in the previous video, I was highlighting this structural resistance we had formed around the $17.6 level, the last level of resistance we had for the orange interpretation. That is about where we got to. Yeah, we pushed probably to the $17.5 level, around that area anyway. It was this structural resistance we had formed in this push to the upside in our previous large wave 3 that stopped us in pushing to higher prices internally. Now, since within this internal structure, it looks very much like a bottom is possibly in place, like this count is quite full, I'm already seeing initial signals that a reversal may be coming. Now, the question is, will this manage to build the 5th wave to the upside? And for that, I would need to see some evidence. I cannot tell you at this point. Technically, this wave 4 in green could still extend. Technically, we don't even have evidence that this wave C in orange is already complete, or that this yellow scenario doesn't extend within a 4th and a 5th. So right now we are waiting for some signals, but I wanted to update for you the area of resistance we are watching for continuation still to lower prices. So here we are watching the resistance levels for the wave 4 between the $17 all the way up to the $18.5 level. Above the 61.8% retracement, we are looking with much higher likelihood for the 5th wave to unfold. Now, ideally, we would form an initial 5-wave move to the upside within the wave A of this larger wave 5, but it is not a requirement, unfortunately, and that is why generally it is much more difficult to deal with diagonal structures. Now, I won't look too much here in the very, very small time frame, but I can already tell based on the proportions of this correction that we have already a good chance of having a bottom in place. I could technically be looking for an extension here in another 1-2 setup. Yeah, technically I could even track all of this as a double 1-2-1-2 setup, But I don't believe it is very lucrative to spend too much within this small time frame, and I believe we should focus on the larger area of resistance we already have for the yellow interpretation. Now, if we will be able to see an initial 5-wave move to the upside within this area, we might look for a potential tiny 1-2 setup, but I wouldn't think too much of it, and I would personally recommend waiting for the larger structure to occur. After all, the wave A, which is what we expect as the first wave of this 5th wave, yeah, remember we are tracking an ending diagonal here within the wave C, which means, once again, this 5th wave is expected to build an A, B, C pattern, and once that is done, we will have a full pattern in our larger 5th wave in white. We will have a potentially full count in our very, very large structure. Now, what I also want you to keep in mind is that below the 61.8% retracement, the $14.4 level, is a high risk of a more substantial top already being in place. Do not rule out the possibility of a direct failure. I would personally still prefer, once again, to push to higher prices still, but I cannot guarantee that it will happen. We have already built the likely structure within this movement, in my opinion. We have already built the largest portion that was expected. Yeah, we had an ABC pattern. We had already built even the wave 1, 2, and 3 within the wave C. All that is needed to have a clearly full count is the 4th and the 5th to complete this movement to the upside. But for now, there really isn't much else to add. We could technically add the count here for the 5th wave in this ABC structure, but other than that, not really much to look for. And for now, these are the levels, this is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and let me know what else you want me to cover, and I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I hope you have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video.